Welcome back to the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett, and we are back here to talk now college basketball as you're seeing this. Really quick up front for the YouTube audience. Yes, Julian and I are wearing the same clothes because you're, for the first time in this show's history, getting technically a pre-record because I will be out of town from Wednesday, the 23rd of November to December 5th. I will be gone a while. In there will be some basketball, some trips, etc. You'll see the stuff on Twitter. I'll be at a Magic game, yada, yada, yada. So really quick, I want to hit college basketball overreactions just like I did with Grayson with week 1 NBA overreactions. We're doing week 2 for college, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to keep rolling through this quickly. But obviously the week 1 is literally just teams playing all crap teams. Like it's just beat the crap out of who you're playing by 80. The next week is where we see the cool stuff. The Maui Invitationals this week. We just saw the Champions Classic, which was amazing. I'm sure it'll come up tonight at some point. But I have one really strong overreaction. I have one not so strong, and I have an underreaction because Julian brought that up to me. I thought it was a really cool idea. And then he has a couple we'll do as well, and we'll go from there. This should hopefully be, knock on wood, 30 minutes or less because I do think there's not that much to overreact to in college basketball just yet. Ask me this in December in the beginning of conference break, and I probably have a different answer. So really quick, Julian, how are you? I know we just talked like 30 seconds ago. For the listeners, it's a week later, but how are you?
I'm excited, man. It's been a fun start to the college basketball season. Obviously, I was excited for the tip off, and then I was like, the first week, like I looked at the slate of games for the first week, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna watch. I think I watched maybe like 15 minutes of I think it was Baylor Mississippi Valley State
There it
was the
is.
first game
I was
that
about to
tipped
say
off
the
for
same
me.
thing. It was a 12 o'clock tip, and I went, why am I watching an 80-point blowout?
Yeah, it was like 50 to 16 and a half. I was like, oh, dude, really?
The final
Like
was
I
even
wanted to
worse.
watch the game, but I can't force myself. But
Yep.
this week,
Yes.
tune into our weekly college basketball podcast, by the way, where we talk about it,
Yes, please. Thank you for
once
plugging
a
that.
week.
I was going to do that at the
Um,
end as well. Thank you. 6 Month Madness. Everything will be below. Check it out. They do a really good job. Caleb and Julian do basically a 30-minute or less, similar to this format, where catching up on the week of college basketball that you would have not or normally been able to watch a lot of those games. So it's good that they kind of give you that nice, refreshing. This is what you missed if you didn't watch anything. So
should I get us started with an overreaction?
let's do it. Yeah, for the sake of the
Let's.
people don't know, we've recorded 2 back to back, and we've got some time constraints tonight. So, yes, please, I'd love to hear this first one because this was your idea. So,
Well, okay. So obviously, for those of you who don't know, Gonzaga played 2 games last week. One against Texas, where they looked absolutely terrible, and one against Kentucky, where they looked like a better team than Kentucky. I think that I want to say that the Gonzaga Kentucky game, let's not overreact. That was a victim of circumstance. I think Cal is just getting his team on track. Let's remember, Oscar Tshiebwe is playing his second game of the season at this point.
yep.
They had Damian Collins, who me and Caleb are both very high on, who is just coming back. And Cal teams always tend to take a little bit of time to gel because there's so many freshmen. And Gonzaga, it's pretty much a bunch of guys who are stepping into roles. I'm not confident in Gonzaga being a contender because of that game. That's going to be where I think the overreaction is. I think that people are going to be hopping back on the Gonzaga train. Oh, they beat Kentucky so badly. I think that's an overreaction.
So let me unpack this for a second. Did you just give me an underreaction and an overreaction at the same time?
Did I? I guess. I
You
guess.
kind of did. You did a little bit. That wasn't your underreaction, right? Where it was like the Kentucky let's not overreact kind of thing.
No, that it wasn't. I had.
It's like
I
a
had. I
soft
have a
one.
couple of different ones.
You softballed
Um,
me. That was good though. I like that. I like the Kentucky point because it's true, and I think it's a fair underreaction. And in the case of underreactions, I think those are going to be more likely right than an overreaction because obviously, Gonzaga is still a national title contender. Obviously, the point of overreactions is to be rash, and I believe you, and that's understandable, and that's totally fair. I agree with you. They looked really, really good in one of the games. They looked really, really bad in the other. I think it's a continuity of the matchups at that point. Texas is built to beat them. If they play Texas at any point in the tournament, Texas is going to win the game again. That is totally not an overreaction, I think. So I'm with you. I think that's a good overreaction, and albeit they'll probably still be in the Final Four. That's like not, and that's okay.
I don't think they will.
That's good. You can keep like you can lean into it, but like it's still
That's
ultimately lean into the fact that it is an overreaction because this is Gonzaga and
Yeah.
Parkview that we're
I
talking
think
about.
that's anyone who's jumped. Me and Caleb have not been buyers on Gonzaga being Final Four contenders this year. Um, And I think that the Texas game cemented that, and the Kentucky game was more. I don't think Kentucky's there yet. More of Gonzaga is there.
They also cared more because of the Texas loss. I
That's
think
true.
they really cared. They wanted to win that game, and they wanted to win that game the same way they lost the Texas game. That's exactly what happened, and that's okay. I also think I think Jimmer, I say Jimmer, LOL. Carl from Jimmer Range made a good point on the preview with me, and he basically said something to the effect of we were talking about contenders, pretenders, maybe a little bit, and he brought up the fact that Gonzaga has somehow, even though they're a top three team, found a way to be underrated. As like,
Yeah,
and
I remember listening to
and
that.
I
Yeah,
think you're falling. I think you're perfectly in that spot with the overreaction as like a, and I think that's fine. If it's like a, if it's a stock market, you're buying low on them right now, or not you, but somebody is. Somebody's buying low as a
somebody's
contrary to your thought process. And I'm totally like, I agree with you. From what I saw in that Kentucky game, like I wasn't sold. Like I'm with you. That wasn't a beatdown. I turned the TV off and came back to it, and like it, from what I saw even before the beatdown process, it was like they just didn't seem like. Yes, they wanted it, but they seemed like that they were supposed to be Kentucky. Like it almost was just, it was just
yeah,
weird. I'm with you. Like it was the Texas one though. I will say, very eye opening. Very like everyone got like Texas on the map. Got it. Like they were a top 12, whatever they were, top 11 team. We saw it and we go, oh my god, that's why Texas is actually a national title favorite. So, and that's not an overreaction, like I said earlier.
yeah. That's another little under. We snuck like two or three in that one little
Yeah, I know.
little
I'm trying to be
conversation.
careful, and I'm glad you
That's
brought up.
impressive.
I would not have thought of them as underreactions if you had said that, but now that we're being clear about what that was, that they're own distinguishable thing, then yeah, I mean, a lot of these things can be both, like over and under in the
Yeah.
same statement. And Texas not underreacting to anything. Texas is
No,
awesome.
they're a really good team. I think they could win the Big 12 this year.
So, anything else on Gonzaga? Because I'm with you. Like, obviously, and I want to come on 6 Month Madness, even though it will become a hour instead of a 30-minute podcast if we're all three together about college basketball. But I think there's, I think the, I'm trying to figure out the best way to word this so it doesn't sound ridiculous. Because obviously it's not my overreaction. I'm saying I agree with you to a sense because at the same time I also believe in Mark Few and I believe in how that at worst to worst this is oh my gosh, that's a mouthful. Push comes to shove is what I'm trying to say. Push comes to shove, it's a worse West Coast conference. Like it's a like this the conference took a step down, right? So they're
Yeah.
going to take full advantage of that and that's totally fine. And come to find out they'll make the Sweet 16, Elite 8, whatever, like that's going to feel like a failure and your overreaction will be correct. That's
Yeah,
ultimately where I've landed the blame.
I just their guards are the big issue for me.
Guards
And I
win in
think we should
March.
get the chance to move on, but that's kind of what really stuck out to me is them not being contenders, is their guards were terrible
I'm with you. Guards win in March. Everyone knows
against
that. Every
yeah,
college basketball
understood.
fan understands that. Like that's why I think
Understood.
you're. It's a warranted. It's a warranted overreaction. I'll only piggyback on my less spicy overreaction because I think it falls right into yours a little bit, or kind of like crosses the same street. I think there's no clear favorite to win the title.
Really? Okay.
Obviously, in November, that's probably not an overreaction. In March, or sorry, let me say February 28th, that's an overreaction.
Yeah.
But let's keep into consideration that there right now I don't think is no clear like I genuinely think that and I can overreact because I think people will disagree with it, which is why it's not a spicy overreaction. It's
I
just in
mean, I
general people are going to disagree with it.
I mean, I disagree with it.
Yeah, and that's why I brought it to the table because I'm like, okay, all of the teams at the top 10 can win the title. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm
Yeah,
saying is none of them I have a convincing that is the reason that team right now is winning the national title, which is why it kind of goes with your Gonzaga won't win it thing. Like it goes hand in hand with that.
I think Houston is the favorite right now.
I knew you were going to do that.
I am very, very sold, especially after watching them just completely dismantle Oregon last night. The reason that I'm in on Houston is two things. We talked about guardsmen in March, right?
Yeah,
Marcus
yes.
Sasser, Jamal Shed, Tremont Mark are fantastic guards.
Yeah, they have three of them, and most teams don't even have one. So yes.
Now, them and Baylor are probably the two teams that have guards. But the difference between them and Baylor is Houston is playing that Kelvin Sampson style where they are dogs on the boards.
Yeah.
They will fight tooth and nail, and they did it against a team with 3 7-footers the other night, um, where they just out hustled them on the boards, and were getting offensive rebounds over and Folly Dante and Kalel Ware. And that was kind of, I mean, when I've watched them early in the season, I've been really impressed, especially with Jarris Walker and Terrence Arsenault. But that game kind of cemented to me like there are not many ways to beat this team, and I'm gonna struggle to see how a team is gonna do that in March. And I think that that's one of my underreactions is that this Houston team, I think, is the best team in college basketball right now. They're the most complete team.
So let's break this down for a minute because I agree with you. I'm just gonna say this and then you'll see why I said it. My underreaction is Houston's damn good. I do know. I told you when we started. I slid in a hint. I said I think we're going to agree on something, and I know what it is, and that's what it is. And I want to break it down for a second, though. The reason I say that, and the reason I agree with everything you just said in the last 2 minutes about Houston, is two reasons. The last 3 years that they've been a quote unquote legit national title. I guess 2019 technically counts because that was pre-COVID, of course. The last 3 years that they've been true, people were picking them in their brackets, genuinely. There was always one thing about them that you went, that's the reason they're going to lose in the Elite Eight. Last year, it was they just flamed out from three. They just couldn't make a shot down the stretch. The year before that, they didn't have a serviceable four. The year before that, I don't even remember. That was basically a decade ago at this point. But something was different about it. I knew the last 2 years. That's the only reason I brought the point up. But they didn't win the national title in 2019. So obviously, right? There's nothing about this team where I go, that's the reason they're losing in the Elite Eight. There's really not a reason I'm saying they're losing in the Final Four. Unless they play maybe a Gonzaga, a Carolina, a Baylor. Like they have to play a Titan in the Final Four for them to lose.
I think that they have to play badly against the Titan for them to lose in the Final Four. They're that good. I just think that not only do I not see a way. I completely agree in the sense I don't see a way that they can lose. That's completely right. And I think also like the star power on this team is significantly better than it's been on Houston teams in previous years.
But it's not, and you have to think there's programs where you have to give the respect to the coach and the system and the program where you're like, okay, there's star power, but like this blank coach knows how to handle it. Kelvin Sampson knows how to handle star power. Like you're not looking at Houston going, it's the star power. Every year you're looking at Houston going, it's Kelvin Sampson, his team that he's built really well. Whether it be in this case the transfer portal, right? So you have to. You're basically forgetting that they're stars, even though they are. I'm with you. They're loaded. And you have to take it basically a step back and understand that, like, not you, but people that don't understand how Houston plays basketball because no one watches the American, but other than Houston. But they're a team that you go, okay, you have to respect the program, the guy running it, and the system that he runs. So yes, star power is important, but in March those guys. It was a perfect quote the other night. I know you saw it. A reporter asked why Jarris Walker, quote unquote, had a bad game. He shot like 3 for 14, right? But he had 10 points, he had 11 rebounds, he had 3 blocks, he had a good game by any other standard, right? And Kelvin Sampson was like, he played Houston ball. He got rebounds, he blocked shots, he defended, he switched, he whatever. In that moment, that reporter was wrong, and he should not have even asked that why he had a bad game because he didn't. He had a good game, and Kelvin Sampson shut him up on the podium, and that's the point I'm making about the star power is all of that's correct, the star power, but it's also when push comes to shove when they're trying to win a national title, what matters is the three things I just said: program, system, coach.
Yeah, and I think that this is the most talented roster in that system, and that's again, and you've just highlighted the exact reasons why I think they're going to win. Why not that they're going to, but I think that they can win the title, and that the favorites is because when you put that kind of talent into a system that is as well oiled and guys that are as well drilled as Kelvin Sampson has, these guys, I really don't think that I can't remember the last time I've seen Kelvin Sampson have this much talent on a roster with this much buy-in.
I don't think there is, yeah. I don't think there is, honestly. I think this is the best team he's ever had. And I want to be completely clear to you and everybody listening. Don't say that, or don't think that just because I said there's no clear favorite to win it all, and then I just gave with you and for you and my own points as well. We basically conclusively say Houston's the best team. Don't take that out of context. There is no clear favorite to win the national title. Houston is just the best team out of the teams that can win it. There's a distinct difference in November. Again, we have this conversation February 28th. Houston's winning a national title in all regards. But my point is I want people to understand from a college basketball standpoint, and I don't know why I'm explaining this to people like they're casuals, but it's just you have to understand this in November. Most college basketball fans don't watch until February or January, depending on their team's conference play. the good consensus of them, which is why I love you guys' a 6-month madness show. But again, completely clear. Houston is the best team of the teams that can win the national title. Doesn't mean that there's a clear favorite. That's just 100% has to be a line in the sand for me. Whether you agree or disagree, that's why we're here. But for me, there's a distinct, just complete drawn line in the sand. Everybody who's national title, Houston, Baylor, UNC, Gonzaga, just that cluster, you know who they are. Line in the sand, teams that can't win it. All of those teams are in the same cluster, and there's no one clear favorite. That is where I wanted to be completely clear, even though everything I said about Houston is completely 100% from the heart and true. So,
Yeah,
I had to get that out there because I thought about it. I kept looking at my notes going, those two side by side on paper don't even look like that makes sense, much less how did it sound coming out of my mouth for the last 15 minutes. So I just had to make sure that it was completely clear.
Yeah,
Anything else on Houston before I want to save mine towards the end. I know you said some overreactions that we can kind of rapid fire. You know, you mentioned that to me earlier.
Yeah, I've got a few. I think that I have a couple of things that aren't overreactions.
Yeah, unders. Let's
I
go.
can just
Yeah, rapid fire the unders at me. We'll see what we think.
Well, actually, now that I think about it, I have one overreaction before we get to that.
Okay.
The Duke freshman.
Okay.
Let's calm down.
Okay, fair. I'm with you.
Let's calm down.
Yeah.
Especially on Lively and Whitehead. They've played a combined 3 games? Like,
well,
people are...
One, technically, I guess, because Whitehead... Well, you said combined. Yeah. No, 3, you're right. Yeah.
Lively's played 2, Whitehead's played 1, right?
Yeah, yes, unfortunately.
Let's pump the brakes. Okay? These guys are fitting into a system with a completely new coach who has never coached Duke as a head coach before. Remember, guys, John Shire is a first-year head coach. Just
the Hubert Davis
that
bump.
Out there.
The Hubert Davis bump. I'm kidding. Don't like that.
Oh,
I probably just got canceled by all of North Carolina. It's okay. I live in the state of North Carolina, by the way. So anyway, ignore that.
Like, there's 6 freshmen in there. It's similar to the Cal thing, where it's similar to the Cal thing, except John Shire's never been a head coach before. So,
yeah. Like,
yes, Filipowski's looked great, and that's cool. And Proctor's had stretches where he's looked pretty good, and that's cool.
That's who I'm pumping the brakes on, by the way, Proctor. I'm saving that for our draft show.
I would also say let's pump the brakes on Proctor, but let's not forget that Lively and Whitehead are still super talented, and when push comes to shove, they are going to be what makes this Duke team tick. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of people, especially that first Duke game against Kansas, where both those guys didn't look particularly great. Well, Lively didn't look particularly great. Filipowski looked phenomenal. People were like, "Oh, Kalo wears better," blah blah blah, all this stuff. Like, let's pump the brakes. It's their first games in college basketball ever in a new system under a new coach who hasn't ever coached this system. And to start dropping them out of your top 10, I think, is a ridiculous overreaction.
Oh, so you're saying that you think Duke's fine and they're going to be better?
They're fine.
Okay, all right. I thought you were going down the player specific path there, but I see what you're saying. Okay, I'll give you 2 things that I think you'll like. So one, KOC and J. Man just started the Ringer NBA Draft Show. Shout out to both those guys. I sent Kyle a message about the tribute they did to Jonathan Sharks. It was beautiful, and I appreciated it. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that they, on their Champions Classic show, was a relatively short show, and Kyle is more of a college basketball. For those that don't know, J. Man is a Kentucky fan, lived in Kentucky his whole life, whatever, right? Big guy when it comes to that college basketball stuff, but also some of the best guys in the draft community. I would call Kevin O'Connor a casual basketball fan, college basketball fan, only because he watches it for the draft and the draft only. So they made a great point about the Duke freshman, and this was before they knew that Whitehead was coming back the next game after the Champions Classic. I listened to it once I knew. I listened to it after we knew about the Whitehead news, so that's fine, right? Context is very important when they record these things. And they made a really good point about basically essentially they just said everything you just said, but they put it from the perspective of the team as a whole. Like, if they're looking this good against Kansas in November and they're getting guys back, and obviously that was assuming Whitehead wasn't playing for another couple of weeks, right? But also seeing that Lively just looks super awkward and raw, and we know that he's good, but he might get bullied by a couple of experienced bigs, some of Virginia's bigs might beat him up in a matchup, but doesn't mean he can't win them a good game in March Madness, right? Doesn't mean he can't win them the quarterfinal of the ACC tournament because he has a 20 and 10 game, right? So they made a good point. I'm with you on all of that, and I think they made that point as well. The second piece of it, though, that's really, really important it's just a hypothetical that I struggle with right now with Duke. And I don't want to digress too long, but just genuine curious on your point.
Okay.
If I gave you two scenarios, which one do you absolutely right this moment, November? What is it? November 21st. November 21st. What do you believe more right now? Don't think about whatsoever the next 2 months of college basketball.
Okay.
If I'm in the future and I'm a genie and I give you a real one of these scenarios is real and one of these scenarios is not. Duke loses in the round of 32. This Duke team, as constructed, as you know them, or Duke wins the national title. Which do you believe more?
Round 32.
I think this team can win a national title.
Really?
that is the conundrum I am battling right now,
I think
and that is based on everything I've just seen right now because I know nothing about the future because I don't know what Whitehead's injury is going to look like. Obviously, we know he's coming back and is back. They're playing Bellarmine tonight, which, by the way, I almost went to that game and I almost abandoned the show tonight because I was like, that game's really cool. They're playing Bellarmine.
Bellarmine's so fun to watch.
And they're in Durham. Like, that's anyway. I didn't want to shell out money right before I left to go out of town for 2 weeks. But so anyway, all of this stuff aside, like they look really, really good. And I don't know anything about how some of the development of Lively and Whitehead and all that stuff's going to happen. I just think I kind of took a step back after the Champions Classic, not to overreact, but I kind of went, God, this team's really loaded. Like, I'm agreeing with you, but in the point of like how I compartmentalize it is they could just beat a team that they shouldn't in the conference or, in the tournament. And then at that point, they're the more talented team for 3 or 4 rounds. And most of the time that matters unless it's guard play. And they have a guy like Roach, who's a junior, who's been there, done that, and knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
That's the difference maker for me. So that aside, I understand where you would be with the round of 32, but I'm balancing that in my head at night and losing sleep.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's interesting, like, not to push this further on, but like it's one of those situations where I think that either they're gonna lose really early because they make a bunch of freshman mistakes,
Right.
or they're gonna get through that first weekend and it's all gonna click and they're gonna make a deep tournament.
And you're
And
going to
I
be like,
don't think there's an
oh,
in between.
dude, what? You're going to be like, what is happening right in front of my eyes?
Exactly.
Yep.
Like next thing you know, they're gonna be in the Final Four and you're gonna be like, man, that Duke team just like they're gonna barely scrape by in the round of 32 game,
Yep.
right? And then they're gonna breeze through Sweet 16 and Elite Eight, and you're gonna look and be like, man, what? How is Duke in the Final Four?
Yep.
And they're
And
just
I'm
gonna
not
be
going to
there.
think twice about it. But in the
Or
past, the difference maker would have been Coach K, and that obviously is a point that people need to continue to
yeah,
hammer.
and that's why I think they could just as easily have that game that's really close in the round of 32 and lose it.
Exactly, I'm with you. Which is why I gave you the conundrum that I've been losing sleep
That was
over.
a really good conundrum. I like that.
What keep going with overreaction, underreactions. We've got a few minutes, and I definitely want to leave time for my one that I think will blow you to shreds.
All right, I got 3 more. 2 are player related, one's team related.
Okay.
And they're all underreactions. Terrence Shannon Jr., Jalen Wilson are first round talents.
Okay.
No
For the
reaction.
sake of time, I'm going to agree with you on both. Less sure on Shannon, more sure on Wilson, and we can talk about that on the draft show. How about that? That go with you? Go with that? Because I think that
Yeah, I'm good with that.
think that I could that might be controversial because of Shannon's play lately, but I also think I see things in Wilson that I'm hopeful as an NBA defender.
Yeah,
even though he was horrible last year.
They both look real. In the games that I've seen so far this year, they both look really good.
And I want to be completely upfront. I haven't watched a single Illinois game just because of time and scheduling. So that is also why I'm careful about this conversation.
I watched that Illinois UCLA game and was very impressed.
Unfortunately, I didn't.
I'm very impressed. He flamed off. Anyway, my other underreaction, Michigan State's a really good team.
Sissoko,
really good team.
It starts with him and ends with him.
Sissoko's great. Hoggard's really good. Jaden Akins is playing well. They have a lot of guys that you're not like looking at from on draft boards, but they're just one of these like Tom Izzo teams that's just like well-rounded. They just have a bunch of guys that they throw at you. And like I love Tom Izzo. I think he's due for a Final Four run, honestly. I don't think they're quite Final Four this year.
Very similar to how Bill Self was due last year for Kansas. Completely the same in their analogy. I'm with you there.
Yeah, I don't think this team's quite that talented. But I mean, look, the way that they beat Nova, again, no Cam Whitmore, so it's tough to evaluate that.
Fair.
And Kentucky had a terrible weekend, so it's tough to evaluate that as well. But I really do think that this Michigan State team, they almost beat Gonzaga, I mean, they're a jump shot away from beating Gonzaga.
On an aircraft carrier, mind you.
Yeah,
Very odd
I mean,
environment. Odd environment for a team that's
you're
really experienced with each other in Gonzaga and really not experienced together yet with Michigan State. So you have to
yeah,
like that's a lot. That's a win there.
and I think that the way that Izzo has made this schedule tough for them early
I
is
love it.
going
I
to
love it.
it's really going to pay dividends,
Love
and
it.
I think that they're going to cruise through a lot of these Big Ten games.
The only thing I'm going to push back on, I'm going to turn the table on your example from earlier, is I'm not overreacting to it yet because of how they played Kentucky, who's also figuring things out, like you said about how they did against Gonzaga. So if I'm taking that in consideration, I'm also agreeing with the point that literally every person in college basketball that I trust that does this for a living, actually, like you know who I'm talking about, all the big guys, basically stated it as we're going to look at this game, and when you're filling out your bracket and you see wins and losses again, you know the little thing on ESPN where it says it doesn't tell you what the result is. It just tells you that they lost to Gonzaga by, or it may say by one sometimes, but like WL in conference. We're going to look at the bottom of that and we're going to forget. And we're basically going to make that game a null and void point because it was by one and they basically won that game even though they lost it. So that's my only, like, turn the table on you of your Kentucky example, only because it's true on both sides of it. So I'm with you though. Yeah, I think Michigan State, I'm going to be a little more, put my walls up a little bit because I think the Big Ten's better than I think people realize, and I think that's okay to say now as an overreaction, mild overreaction.
And so
But I think if they can handle the Big Ten like they probably can, I'm going to be where you are right now.
I think the Big Ten is
So I'm careful.
Illinois, Indiana, them, maybe Ohio State. I'm not
Nah,
that sold on Iowa. I know
I'm not either.
Chris Murray looks
Yeah.
good, but I'm not that sold on Iowa. I'm not that
Michigan,
sold on
Michigan, obviously you didn't say Michigan, but
sorry,
obviously
Michigan.
that was a given. That's why I let. Yeah, Michigan's a given.
There's always like one or two teams that I just forget play in the Big Ten because there's so many.
And because they're the best team, and that's okay to forget them because they're going to win the Big Ten. Like that's okay. Michigan's probably going to win the Big Ten pretty handily. But I
Yeah,
think
they
there are
should.
teams that they'll lose to Indiana, and people might overreact. They're going to lose to Iowa once, probably, and overreact. Like there's going to be small losses in there with Michigan State that in the past you would overreact to, but now that you wouldn't, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Go ahead and give me your last one since you said you had three. Fire off the last one. I won't have much on it probably because I want to make sure that this one has a few minutes for sure.
I mean, my last one is that UCLA is in trouble because their freshmen are not good.
I was literally just telling. I think I was. Who was I talking? Oh, my buddy came over to watch Gonzaga, Texas. No, what was last night? Gonzaga, Kentucky. Gonzaga's played all these big games. I forgot
Yeah.
which one. He came over to watch Gonzaga, Kentucky last night, and across the room he had said something about something came up about UCLA, and I was walking away, and I'll never forget what I said. I was like, their freshmen look really bad, but Campbell and Jaquez look amazing. And he was like, really? I said, that's exactly what's happening, and that's okay because Mick Cronin's going to figure something out
Yeah.
in a week conference. Let me just be clear.
Jalen it's Jalen. Jalen Clark's been a
Jalen Clark.
surprise. He's been really good for them, and like
Yep.
that's nice, but
You're
that
relying
team
way too much on Campbell and Jaquez.
that
It is
team
what it
is
is.
I don't think that team is they're missing Juzang badly.
Yes, that was like I was a truther. Okay, like yes, they are. I picked them in way too many award conversations, and I picked them to win too many things. So yeah, I'm very careful about my UCLA words now. I ate too many of them with Juzang. Okay, there's receipts. People can go back and find them. I'm not digging them up. They're there. They're not deleted. They're public. They're last year's pods. It is what it is. I learned my lesson. All right. Anything else that may not be off the top of your head? Otherwise, this one isn't. By the way, it's. I think I'm playing it up too much, but I also think it's deserving. I think it needs to have the conversation, and I do think it is still is an overreaction. So, are you ready, or are
Is or
you?
isn't?
I think it
Fire
is.
it off, fire it
It's
off.
definitely an overreaction, but it's more because the conversation needs to be had.
Okay, fire it off.
The ACC needs to be treated like a mid major this year because the ACC is a mid major this year. If we're being overreaction, I need to say it as a case in point without a question mark. The ACC, and I'll tell you why. They have 3 guaranteed tournament teams right now out of the Power 5. They're the only conference that has less than 5.
Let's see. We've got NC, Duke, Miami.
Kentucky or Virginia.
Oh, Virginia. Duh.
Virginia. Did you hear all of that? That's so awful. You didn't hear my
I
phone?
heard some of it, but that was
Okay.
hilarious.
All right. So recapping, UNC, Duke, and Virginia are the only 3 guaranteed teams that will be in the tournament come March.
I really like Miami.
Okay, I'll give you that.
I'll be biased,
I'll
but
give you that. but it's an overreaction, right? So I had to be rash, right? I had to be somewhat rash. I'm going to read you the teams in the ACC just for a refresher for those people that might forget. I'm just going to read them out loud so that we can all be in the same conversation about the ACC that we should be having.
Can I give you my synopsis on good or bad or mediocre
Yeah.
as you do that?
Just one word, like I
Yeah,
guess however
like
good, bad, ugly. Oh, good, bad, ugly. There you go. Good,
yeah,
bad,
yeah.
ugly. All right. The NC State Wolfpack are the top team for some reason in this order because I guess
They're like
they're going to get in. I will say I think they're probably going to get in,
they're good,
and I'm being
I
biased
guess.
slightly. Good, I guess.
I
All right,
think
so
I think they're good.
Carolina, we already said. Notre Dame.
Bad.
I think Notre Dame missed the tournament.
Yeah, they're not
Virginia,
great.
we already said. Virginia Tech.
Bad.
They lost 6 people from the team last year. Let's just be upfront
Yeah,
about that. They lost 6
they're
people from last year's team.
they're bad.
Clemson.
Ugly.
Miami, you said already, so that's your Fringe 4 team.
Yeah, I like Miami. They're good.
Wake Forest. Ugly is the only right answer.
Yeah,
Tyree Appleby is the only thing that matters
So
on that team.
hey, both of them's good too.
All
I
right.
got 2 guys.
All right, whatever.
1.5.
I did. They were the last team alphabetically, I think, or second to last team in my article. Thank you, by the way. Shout out to publicly to people who are listening. Julian's the person that edited that article for me. They were the second to last team, and I'm very glad that they were the second to last team because I literally went, literally Tyree Appleby is the only thing that I'm going to pick the guy that's a 5th, 6-year starter. He's the breakout. Like they were horrible. They're terrible. They almost lost the other night to it. They almost lost the other night to a really bad Division II school. All right, Georgia Tech.
Ugly.
Syracuse. Be honest, they're ugly.
Pretty bad.
They're pretty bad. They're in the ugly bad tier.
Ugly-ish.
Yeah.
It's like an orange card in soccer.
Yeah. Boston College.
Ugly. Jesus.
Pitt.
Oh boy.
Ugly.
Do we have an oh boy category?
yeah, like its old safe category. Does Johnson average? No, anyway. And then, so fitting. Last but not least, Florida State and Louisville.
Oh God.
They're in their own tier again, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah,
how many years?
Stinks.
How many years in the last? Thank you, because this is where I concluded it. How many times in the last 10 years have you walked away and said, "I'm just going to give you historical resume wise, like not historical resume, but think about pedigree. Pedigree is the word I'm looking for. How many times in the ACC in the last, let's say, 10 years have you went into a season? At least now we know 4 games wise that you know for a fact." Louisville, Florida State,
Yep.
Syracuse, Wake, and Virginia Tech are all going to be bad. Like
Boston
bad.
College, too.
And Boston, they're always bad.
Yeah, sure.
So 5 good ACC could be the reason that they have 8 teams in the tournament type of year normally.
Yeah,
all 5 of them are horrible. Like actually like bad.
Florida State lost to Stetson, and Florida State year. Has Florida State won I think they just beat Mercer
tonight.
Like barely
tonight. Yes, by like 4. So the point I'm making is less about the reaction of it being like I'm treating them the reaction. If you're learning right now, is the mid-major part of it. Obviously, it's a joke, right? It's an overreaction to drum it up.
Obviously, they're not.
But now that we sit here and go, "Oh my God, they're really bad."
Stinks this year.
And
I was thinking about it. Because me and Caleb have been talking about how great the SEC is.
Mm-hmm.
Someone had to suffer, and it looks like it's been the ACC.
And that's totally warranted. And I don't think anybody would have predicted that. How bad, though, is my point. So what I wanted to do coming into this, and that's why I like podcasts, because sometimes stuff can happen. What I wanted to do to show that was go through each conference really like faster than we just did that, and go how many tournament teams 100% like locks, just locks, which we don't have time to do now, but. I liked what we did instead because it just showcased the eyesore that the ACC is better versus like we go through the SEC and go, okay, for sure we have 5 teams. For the Big East, we for sure have 5. I can do them off the top of my head, probably not the actual team, but just the number. SEC, you're absolutely getting 5 in no matter what. You're absolutely getting 5 in the maybe 6, exactly. So just for
Big
sure,
Ten SEC, Big Ten.
You're getting 5 here. You know what? You're getting 5 alone. Period. No matter what's from every one of them, and you're probably getting 6 or 7 from others.
Yeah.
That's easy. There we go. I just summarized 5 minutes of what we were going to do. So then there you go. The ACC is getting 3 absolute guarantees.
And maybe there's
that's
2
bad.
babies.
Isn't that bad terrible. Though? Like that's where I concluded was if we're going to go, okay, some conferences are going to have 8 7, 6, 5, and then the ACC's like, no, hold my beer. Here's 3, no matter what you're getting by the end of the year.
I
And
mean, the eight.
it just sucks. I'm disappointed as a Tobacco Road kid, and I'm looking at this schedule. I can't wait to see what it looks like in mid-January when conference has taken a toll on some of these teams, because I'm going to sit here at the bottom and we're going to go, Pitt has a better record than Florida State. And you're going to be like, excuse me?
I took Pitt losses in our. Well, me and you were both killing it because I have Pitt Syracuse losses in our skin draft, and
tough.
you have Louisville losses.
Syracuse right now only because of non-conference play is 3-1, but otherwise I agree with you. Yeah.
They lost the game they weren't supposed to lose, though.
Yeah, 2-3 Pitt, 1-4 Florida State, and 0-4 Louisville because they officially think it's 0-5. They lost in Maui tonight to
there's no chance
Arkansas.
they beat Arkansas.
Yeah,
there's no chance they beat Arkansas.
When I walked into the office tonight to sit down with you, they were down by 15. So fair. That is where I'll leave it because I think ultimately it sucks. It is unfortunate where that has concluded, but I think you understand why I was like, it's an overreaction, but it isn't really.
It's not. I don't think it is.
But it was worth
the
me.
ACC stinks.
I felt strongly about it, which when I think of overreactions, even if it's slightly one, I want to talk about it, and that's why that was the one I had. So that is where I'll conclude it of my conversation with the ACC, or why I brought it up. Thank you for grinding it out with me tonight. For those of you that didn't realize it, if I haven't said it already multiple times, obviously, Julian and I have been doing this for a couple hours now. You'll have some great content coming out from here for the NBA, and obviously now more college basketball than I've done more college basketball in the last 3 weeks with this show this year than I had in 3 months before the tournament last year. So just give you an idea of how committed I am to this bit now.
Got you hooked, man.
Thank you. Give a crackhead crack. So, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for grinding it out with me. Looking forward to seeing this. Thank you to all of you for the support over the last couple of weeks with the transition of the seasons and stuff. All of this stuff will be scheduled, and you'll see it, and it'll be a lot of fun. If you're at a Magic game by any chance on Wednesday, November 30th, come see me. I'll be in section 116. I'll also tweet it out as well. So thank you very much again. Feel free to check out Julian's stuff below. All the stuff for both of our all of our channels and links and subscribes and likes and stuff will all be all over the screen and in the description below. Go show love and support. Thank you very much. Julian, anything you have to say before you get out of here? Since I didn't give you a chance on the NBA pod.
I had an awkward little outro moment there. Go Sixers, even though we stink. And
it's okay.
D for Fire Doc Rivers, for those of you who are listening back to back.
If you know, you know. This has been the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett, and I forgot to change the sign.